Much for your presence at BU Talk Show.
It's, as always, pleasure to be with you.
I know you have a lot of work to do during these pandemic times. We should also focus on problems regarding the environment and the next steps to be done in the near future. Let's start the discussion with the Green Deal. That's the big umbrella, let's say, for everything that is going to happen in the European Union in terms of environment. What is the situation now? What are the discussions now?
So the Green Deal initiative, as it is, was adopted, let's say, in a good times, but it remains the key growth strategy for the European Union, even during the COVID-19 and post-COVID-19. And this should be one of the directions in which the Union will be rebuilding. As you know, two directions which are taken in the recovery package for the Union to rebuild and are going to be addressed is the Green Deal and digitalization. So initiatives under the Green Deal, even so that many had doubts if they will be maybe postponed, they are actually all on plan. We are working, and we just presented a few weeks ago, a month now ago, a biodiversity strategy and farm to fork strategies, which are crucial on not only protecting and restoring environment, but also creating additional opportunities, creating jobs which are related with the nature-based solutions. Secondly, of course, the climate law, which is undergoing public consultation. It's in the final stages, but it's on track. And now my team is focused and working on delivering the sustainable chemicals strategy, which is going to be delivered in the beginning of autumn.
Let's see exactly what this farm to fork strategy means, because you've mentioned it, and I know that I think last week it was an important discussion also in the European Parliament on this subject. How will change our life, this strategy?
First of all, it's of course going to change life for a better. We're aiming for farming practices for food to be delivered on the citizens' table that would be healthy, that would be sustainably farmed, that less pesticides would be used, and of course, most importantly, that we not only speaking about the human's health, huge improvements for human health, but we also speaking about the environmental health improvement and protecting environment in this case, where we know that nutrients, runoffs, use of pesticides, these are the main sources of water pollution. These are the main sources of pollinators loss. These are the main sources of extinction of different species, which also are important in the whole biodiversity. The huge focus was put, of course, on organic farming practices, because we see clearly that demand for organic products are increasing within the EU, and increasing in much faster pace than increases the organic farming practices, and that's why we are going to reward farmers who are going to farm in organic way.
So what should a farmer do in the near future if we are discussing about, I don't know, a Romanian, a Lithuanian, a Belgian farmer? What should he or she do?
First of all, as you've noticed very well, that all this transition is not impossible without our guardians of the land, our farmers. And for us, it's very important to accommodate farmers in this transition. So, of course, the primary tool of this is going to be CAP and support from CAP to all these ambitious target. The new CAP reform provides the tools for supporting this transition, allowing member states, first of all, to support conversion to organic farming and the maintenance of organic farming under the second pillar, so-called rural development, on which on top European Commission added additional 15 billion euros under the recovery package, or under the eco schemes, which are in the first pillars, so-called the direct payments. And demand-side measures are another possibility. The new green public procurement criteria for catering services adopted by the Commission in 2019 allow public authorities to increase the local demand for organic products in all public restaurants. So we're talking about schools, hospitals, retirement homes, and this would complement the supply side target in addition to the existing market trend of higher demand by consumers of organic product, and the increase, of course, of short circuit and farmer markets for organic products, because our aim also in the end of the day that farmers, from what they do, those activities would be sustainable business activities also, that the products they are selling would bring the profitability and ensure a thriving living for our farmers.
It was a discussion at the European Parliament level on this farm and fork strategy. Some were saying that taking into consideration the existing measures, let's say, in this strategy, it might be even a bigger the differences between poorer states and those who have a lot of money. Do you think that this will be the case?
No, absolutely not. All the Green Deal initiatives, of course, including Farm to Fork, are designed that we not only, help the ambitious ones to go ahead, but we also help those who are still not there. And for this, we have created a special Just Transition mechanism, so-called Just Transition Fund, which would help, member states who are not there with their, let's say, level of development in certain fields would catch up. And of course, that transition would ensure that there would be no job losses. And so member states could catch up effectively, having on board all the citizens.
We all saw during these pandemic times that the environment, that our countries are feeling better, let's say, with us staying at home. What are I don't know if you have some new data regarding the situation in the European Union during this pandemic times, but I think it will be interesting to see how cleaner is now the environment.
So we can monitor and we can see that certain aspects improved. For example, air quality. When there were basically factories stopped, there were way less cars on the streets. We can see that environment also reacted, and I'm surprised. Usually, couple months in environment means nothing, but we could see that we could see multiply on the news that there is animals, wildlife on the streets. And it was quite swift reaction, but let's not fool ourselves. That's temporary. And as soon as things are getting back to normal, the pollution levels will get back to those which were before. And I think this is a chance for us, actually, when we talk about our recovery, about European Union's recovery, about businesses getting back on track. And when we speak about huge amount, almost 2 billion euros to be injected of public money to be injected in EU's economy, this is a great chance to rebound better and to make a step forward instead of rebounding back to those pollution levels. And nature will pay us off. Our citizens' improved health will pay us will pay us off, because we know we just recently had a report on air pollution on 2018 data, and it clearly shows that lots of premature deaths here in the EU are connected with the poor air quality in our cities.
Here in Romania, we saw these days some important floodings, and one of the main causes is the deforestation. I know that you are focusing on this area also, and that you are in contact also with the Romanian authorities. What is, in your opinion, the important thing to be done in Romania regarding this subject, or in any other country, actually?
So, first of all, speaking about the Romanian case, Romanian authorities have replied to the letter of formal notice by the Commission, which identified shortcomings in implementing relevant EU law, and the Commission is analyzing the provided replies. And of course, speaking in general, Commission condemns any sort of violence in countries which has stemmed out of the illegal logging. And of course, we always call on national authorities to be able to effectively check the operators and apply appropriate sanctions, speaking of illegal logging within the member states. But also under the biodiversity strategy, we foresee better protection of forests, especially we speak about the increased protection of old growth forests. We have only 4% of old growth forests left, but this is the place where we host the most of our ecosystem, where is the richest biodiversity, where is, of course, huge amounts of CO2 stored. That's why protection of forests are important, but we also going to come up in 2021 with the forest strategy for the EU, where we will take into account all and each member state's forest management plans, which we're going to look and evaluate very carefully. Finally, we have a very ambitious goal by 2030 in the European Union to plant 3 billion trees.
You gave us a term until the end of June to start implementing the tracking system. I remember that we've discussed a couple of months ago about this subject. Any news coming from Romania regarding this tracking system?
So the major news, I can't comment too much on ongoing infringement procedure, but I can tell you that, Commission has made a decision to open an infringement case, which is, started in February, and there is not only tracking system to be installed. There is another commitments which has to be fulfilled, and if Romanian authorities is not going to step up implementation, infringement procedure will not going to be closed. So I think it is in the interest of Romanian authorities to really fulfill the commitments and close this infringement.
During this week, you've also discussed about the fishing in the European Union. You've had participated to an council. What are the main issues decided there?
The main thing which was addressed is, of course, fishing opportunities for 2021. We looked also into how the sector is doing. The good news, of course, that this last year was profitable for European Union's fishery sector, which in average was 18% of profit margin, which is, I think, a very decent profit margin. Which also gave us very clear answer that in those areas, sea basins, where we have a sustainability kept well, where we fish within the maximum sustainable yields, we have the highest profitability. Unfortunately, in those sea basins which are heavily overfished, profitability is decreasing. And among one of those heavily overfished sea basins is, of course, one Romania knows also very well is also Black Sea. And another thing which was also important, which was addressed, is cetaceans, is the bycatch of common dolphins in the Bay of Biscay and harbor porpoise in the Baltic Sea. And of course, Commission here called for member states to step up enforcement. If such things are not done, Commission will have to step in with management plans in order to protect endangered species in the sea basins. Even so, that the news in the report sounded good, unfortunately, all this data was gathered before the COVID-19. We now living in completely different, let's say, period where profitability, where market basically of fisheries collapsed. I'm happy that the Commission reacted very quickly with the response to COVID-19, with the help for our fishermen and women, to our coastal communities, which will be able to receive funding for temporary cessation. But definitely we will need to slightly more time to evaluate what damage and how hard sector was hit and how we can help to our fisheries sector in the future, because it is important sector which brings nutritious, healthy food to our tables.
Let's make a top 3 problems regarding the environment, in your opinion, nowadays in the European Union.
First of all, of course, I would say that it's a pollution with the different sources of pollution. You can name them. It can be, you know, CO2 and so on, but it's a nutrient runoffs. It's a pesticides and so on. So basically, pollution is number 1. I would say. 2, the second problem, I would say that, of course, extinction of species, which is now dramatically at the dramatic numbers, and we never had so many species at the extinction, and that has to be reversed. And the third one, I would probably say that unsustainable use of land, unsustainable use of resources, which again puts enormous pressure on the environment and pushes it to the limits. We shouldn't forget that. For example, if we unsustainably use forests, for example, which are natural protection, natural guardians, natural firewall, I would say, between us and wildlife. Those zoonotic diseases, they are getting closer to us, and nature, when it's cornered, it can strike back. Something similar happened with the COVID-19.
How difficult was for you as a commissioner to do your job during this pandemic?
Of course, many things, were cancelled or postponed, and we struggled with. We had to, adjust to online and consult, speak with many stakeholders online. So at the beginning, maybe it needed time to adjust, but I think Commission did quite well in this. Probably the hardest part was basically that we didn't have a chance to have a country visit where we would visit one or the other member states and discuss issues which are related to member states, where we speak about different directives, enforcement, implementation, questions which really matters to citizens. We couldn't unfortunately meet and talk with them. But in regards of, for example, implementation of the Commission agenda, I'm truly happy that we have very devoted staff who worked day and night. I think for many of them, the conditions were much harder because they had also cope with their everyday work, and also additionally, to do their job while having, children at home, and so on. So I'm truly thankful to all the services for their devoted work, that we could move ahead with many initiatives. Hopefully, we will be able to rebuild even stronger.
Your country did well.
I'm responsible now for 27 member states. Country I know best. I'm happy they coped with the virus very, very well. But I'm worried now, looking at the tendencies, for example, where at the beginning it seemed like Romania and Bulgaria, they also did very well, but now the number of cases are increasing, and it seems like we cannot underestimate this virus. It might come back, and it's been talked about it quite a lot, that the virus is not going to go anywhere until we have vaccine. So of course, I only can ask our citizens for more patience, to listen to their government advices, and to take a good care of themselves and their relatives ones, the close ones, the loved ones. And if there is, meetings which they can avoid, in public spaces which they can avoid visiting, I would probably suggest to do so, because the health is basically, in the end of the day, is the most important what we have. The good news, of course, here is we are much better prepared for the second wave. We have, PPE around distributed around the member states. We have our doctors who know how to approach it much better. National governments with different plans. But in the end of the day, it's also depend a lot on our fellow citizens, how they're going to approach this problem. Are they going to act responsibly?
How difficult was to explain to your children the situation?
That's a very good question. My son, to be very honest, he refers a lot of things which we can't do, can't go somewhere to. So he always asks, "Is this a virus?" Yes, it's still a virus situation. I'm so tired of that virus. So of course, children have way less patience than us. But most importantly, I think you should find the ways to approach, to find the ways how to entertain them at home. I had to do it the same for a while. Berlaymont was basically closed, and we were working from home. So of course we had to do homework for children as well, and of course try to learn and entertain them with the new things. But this is how it is. This is the situation where most of the world is in. Thankfully, that seems like in European Union, most of the member states coped with it very well. But as I said, let's not underestimate this virus.
Commissioner, thank you so much for your presence at BU.
Thank you very much. I'm always enjoy speaking to you, and I can only wish you to stay healthy.